How's it going? 49ers Coast to Coast. We're your hosts, Grant Cohn, Jason Aponte. There's breaking news. Jason, tell the people what just happened.
Wayne Garman signs with the Atlanta Falcons. Remember he couldn't be claimed or because he wasn't waived, he was outright released. So it was a little shocking that yesterday nobody picked him up. But as we know, with IR designations and roster moving around, it wasn't going to take long for Garman to find his way onto another roster. He is that solid of a player. I think the misconception that people had on Twitter yesterday about people complaining about Garman was that people think that Garman, that we believe that Garman was going to be some sort of guts in the RB1. No, he's a very solid player. And I thought that what he brought to the table was something that Kyle Shanahan would value, i.e. pass protection, i.e. track record. But at the same time, they got under the numbers crunch and they decided to let him go. I was pretty certain that he was going to find his way onto a roster. And when you look at what happened with the Ravens, when you look at what happened with the Rams with their running back injuries, those kind of felt good. But then when you look at the Falcons, that's kind of where I looked at. I just looked at everybody's depth chart. The Falcons literally just had Mike Davis, Kadri Allison, and Cordero Patterson. Those are your three tailbacks. You need more help. So they wound up cutting Kadri Allison to bring in Wayne Garman. And 1 out of 100 predictions, getting it right ain't bad, I guess, right?
Pete Gorman says we got enough running backs. We don't need them. See, to me, that's fair if there weren't players on the roster who I would consider practice squad caliber. Like, I think Jason and I could go through the roster and name at least 2 players right now.
Devontae Harris?
Yeah, Dante Johnson, Tom Compton. I mean, okay, so it's unprecedented to have 5 tailbacks. There's no rule against it. They're all good players. And by cutting him, you just made the Falcons better. They're in your conference.
Yeah. I mean, again, when you look around, depth was going to be needed, and he's a guy who has 5 years in this league and has shown his track record of being very solid. I don't see where the pushback was where, listen, I understand the JaMycal Hasty thing. Athletically, no one's here to argue that JaMycal Hasty isn't ahead of Wayne Garman athletically wise, the way that he runs the ball, that's fine. For me, I'm a big track record guy, and I thought that Kyle Shanahan would value those things. But it appears that JaMycal Hasty did enough in those last 2 games, on top of leading the NFC in rushing yards and touchdowns during the preseason to warrant that spot. But I was very shocked to see him go, actually. I really was.
Silver lining here is that the Niners should get Jeff Wilson Jr. back. There's your 5th running back. But again, I mean, you can't have too many. And I think there are players on this team that they could have cut and put on their practice squad and had Garman. I think are like a 3 or 4 practice squad guys in this 53-man roster. Like, for example, Juwan Jennings. Nothing against Juwan Jennings. They cut him last year. He cleared waivers last year. What has he really done since then? Caught a few passes in preseason. Maybe he get claimed. Maybe he wouldn't. I think
he played, which is more than we could say for
Hurd. I mean, yeah, exactly. There are guys in this 53-man roster you think could be on the practice squad with Garman here. And it'll be something to monitor as the season goes on, because right now it doesn't seem like you need a 5th tailback, but that's the position that goes the fastest in terms of injuries. All right, so I want to do something different today.
Yep.
Talking a lot about quarterbacks. I want to talk about depth because, I mean, I feel like with this team, like the injuries are almost a given because like all the good players are injury prone or have injury history. And what made 2019 a special year was that they had a lot of key depth. I just off the top wrote down 8 players who stepped up big time that year. Mostert, Brunskill, Greenlaw, Bourne, School, Mosley, Dwelly, and Moore. It was 8 guys that like 3 on defense, 5 on offense who really stepped up and allowed them to win games without stars on the field. And I'm curious to see if they can do the same thing this year. Clearly, they're good at quarterback. They have, insured themselves at quarterback. They have the most expensive quarterback room in the league. They're good there. But at other positions, they may not have as much depth. So why don't I start with one guy, and then we can go back and forth players that we think are like really irreplaceable, that if they go down, the backup is a huge drop. Huge drop.
For sure.
Let's go obvious. Fred Warner. I mean, he's never missed a game. We don't expect him to. But if they were to not have Fred Warner for 1 game, I would worry because his backup would be Azeez Al-Shaair, who isn't even in the same ballpark as him. He's the quarterback of the defense. He's one of their best cover guys. He's one of their best guys against the run. If they didn't have Fred Warner, they'd be without their best player.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really easy to do this across the board, right? Because you can say Fred Warner, and that's absolutely somebody who comes to mind. Trent Williams, the same thing. You're never going to get the same level of elite players, right? With when it comes to that, George Kittle, those guys are elite. So you can say any of those guys as well too. But yeah, the linebacker core, it would be scary if Fred wasn't there. The drop off would be huge. It would be huge. So that's not something that's wrong. And that's no slight at Azeez Al-Shaair. I think that's more about praising Fred Warner for how good he is and what he brings. And that's another thing that is underappreciated about Fred. Forget the smarts, forget covering. He's durable. He plays every single game, every single snap. That's something that is, elite players lose games all the time. Happens all the time at every position. For some reason, knock on wood so far, Fred Warner doesn't have that issue, let alone being the smartest guy on the field, the quarterback. Talk about that durability and talk about the drop-off behind it. I don't think that it's really close that it would be Fred Warner as number one.
Yeah, and if he had gone down in 2019, Quan Alexander would have been the one to slide over and play middle linebacker. It's what he played in Tampa. This year, it'd be Azeez Al-Shaair. It's not this. I'll take Quan over. Oh, is Quan in the league still? Is he out?
Yeah, I think he signed back with the Saints, actually.
Okay.
He was out there for a little while, and he signed back with them. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, still, that's a tough one, an obvious one. All right, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go obvious too, Jason Varette. I mean, look, nothing against Emmanuel Moseley, but here's how I have this depth chart shaking out right now. Jason Varette, Emmanuel Moseley, and the third, as many people would believe, is Diamador Lenore. Can never get that right on one shot. Diamador Lenore. Dante Johnson's the number 3 cornerback. Yeah. And that's no slight at him either, right? Like, again, I'm not talking bad about him, but the difference between Jason Varette and Emmanuel Moseley and Dante Johnson and Emmanuel Moseley is vast, right? Yeah. So you have to remember, put yourself in the offensive coordinator's shoes. You see Jason Varette on one side, you know what he's capable of and what the heights that he hit last year. And you only could think that that's going to improve based on him being healthy and him being confident and getting back in there, right? So who are you going to pick on? Emmanuel Moseley, right? And we've seen offenses do this.
Yes.
Go back to the Miami game. All it took was Brian Allen to be out there for that entire defense to go away. And there was nothing that anybody else could do because you're getting picked on. Now, nothing against Emmanuel Moseley and Dante Johnson, but now you got your pick. So picture Jason Varette going down in a game against the Seattle Seahawks. It's a big divisional game. Now you've got Dante Johnson and Emmanuel Moseley trying to cover Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I don't care how inept that offense might be running at that time, even though they have a new offensive coordinator. That's pretty simple. You can attack either of those guys, and it would be a huge liability. I don't care how good the pass rush is. I really don't. That's not going to be good enough to stop all that because then all you have to do is get the ball in those guys' hands and on a quick slant, something like that. Neither of those guys can cover both of them. So, yes, Jason Varette, that's my pick.
Yeah, I think Jason Varette. I want to stick with the defense here when we go through this, and then we'll go offense later. But I think on defense, he's the most irreplaceable player. I think he's number 1. And what's so interesting to me is, the Niners really have gone overboard at quarterback in ways that no one else in the league have. 27 million man on one side, 3 first-round picks on the other. They're good there. But on defense, if anything were to happen to Jason Varette, if they didn't have him for one game, all of a sudden their starting cornerbacks would be Emmanuel Moseley and Dante Johnson. And if you're going up against a good offense, I don't know if you can win that game. You're a run-first team. It could get bad. It could get really bad. So it's like the Niners have all this protection and insurance at the most important position, but this is a very important position too, and you have no insurance here. Like Diamador Lenore looks good. He might look like the best rookie on the team right now, but I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about Diamador Lenore and Emmanuel Moseley starting? I mean, I'd be kind of scared. I'd be kind of nervous.
Going into camp, I was super afraid. Now I'm much more confident now that I've seen Lenore put it together. So I feel much better. I think that when you start to get past Lenore, then, oh my God, it gets like the Ambry Thomas thing, anybody else that they were bringing in, that is absolute death to this defense. So with Lenore, I'm
oh my God, if Ambry Thomas played this year, oh my God.
I'm holding back I'm holding back, going crazy on all that. It just Lenore looks a little bit better than I thought. But again, I don't want to effuse praise on somebody who has only done it in preseason games, right? Let's see what happens when, the Chiefs game, they only ran their guys out there for, maybe one drive. We're talking about Tyreek Hill, all those guys. That was like one drive. With the Chargers didn't run any of them out there. So they didn't have to cover Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and all those guys. I'm not saying that I'm trying to knock down Lenore. I'm just saying that context needs to be thrown in when you talk about their performances in those games. So if they were locking down the Chargers in week 3 or whatever, like if they played in a regular season game and Lenore was clamping, Williams, Guyton, and Allen, then yeah, I feel like that. But it's hard for me to say, okay, that's just going to translate right over to the regular season because he's beating up on backups. So I mean, we'll see.
That's a good point. And I've seen Lenore in one-on-ones, and I kind of I don't ever see him win against Debo and Ayuk. So that's why I pump the brake. Like Ambry does a better job against those guys in one-on-ones, which isn't real football, but it's something. So that's why I'm a little nervous, and I feel like you put in all this insurance over here. If I don't, it may not matter which quarterback you have out there. If your corners are Mosley and Johnson and a rookie, it may not matter which quarterback you got.
You're preaching to the choir. I wanted them to go get AJ Boye. I wanted them to go get Steven Nelson. I wanted guys with track records in the NFL on this team. But they obviously, again, Shanahan and Lynch, they have their guys. Dante Johnson is going to be on this roster as long as he's able to play football, and you had to know that was going to be coming. So I'm not going to say that I know better than them, but this was the biggest concern on this team for me was if something happens to Jason Varette, now you are in dire straits at this point. So you have to hope that Lenore can translate that from the preseason over. I have a good feeling that he can. That doesn't mean that he necessarily will, if that makes any sense.
Okay, I got another one.
Go.
Defense. Jaquasky Tart. I mean, we didn't really people don't really think about him very much, and I think everyone kind of just assumed he'd be healthy. But the idea that he wasn't going to be healthy week 1 was scary. And I'm thinking if it's not him out, the thing about that's really good about Tart is you can't isolate him, you can't exploit him. He always does the right thing, and he's a hell of an athlete. If it's not him, it's like someone you have to hide. It's someone that offenses are going to try to exploit and target, and you got a big problem. He's not like the flashiest player. He doesn't make a bunch of plays, but damn, he's so important.
That's why. So with Tart, you rarely hear his name called on any sort of pass plays, and for me, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing, right?
He never gives up anything over the top. And I point to 2019. The 49ers had allowed in his games, I think over, the 10, 11 games that he was there, they allowed something about I think it was 20, 25 explosive pass plays. The three games that he missed, they allowed 13. And 1, 2, and 3 that happened over and over and over.
Stat. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Right. He's safe, and that's why people don't like it. You want your safeties to be a ball hawk and everything. Sometimes the best plays that are made are the ones that you don't see. When Tart is over there covering a guy and the ball doesn't get thrown his way and it goes somewhere else for an incompletion, you'll sit there and say, oh, nice play by that defensive back on the incompletion. No, Jaquasky Tart actually whipped that away, so now you can't go that way, and that's the reason. Listen, if you don't listen to me or Grant on this one, listen to the coaching staff. Yeah. With his injury, he's immediately right back in that spot. It's not Hufanga and it's not Tavon Wilson. And Tavon Wilson was the one who ran with the ones. This is Jaquasky Tart's job until he can't play anymore. I don't care what people want to say about, hey, you need him off the roster because he's injured. Cool. Injuries, we know that. But when he's on the field, it is as safe as it gets. And if he's able to put together a long season, then you'll really start to feel it in the way that the shift has happened with Jimmy Ward and the public perception about him.
And look, I'm not saying Tart can play 17 games this year. I'm just saying if he doesn't, it's a problem. He's very important to this team because the next guy up would probably be Hufanga, who is good at certain things, but they're different. I mean, for example, when Tart is at practice, he does one-on-one drills, like pass coverage drills, with the corners against wide receivers. Him and Jimmy Ward, because it's like a waste. It's not a waste of time, but it's a waste of time against. If they don't go against Kittle every time, it's a waste of time. Hufanga doesn't do that. He's he's struggling against freaking Charlie Werner. You know what I'm saying? He's getting roasted by Jordan Matthew. That's what he's doing. So he's a nice 5th round pick, but I feel like he's being a little overhyped by the media. I think the real best rookie DB right now is Lenore. He's not getting as much hype because he doesn't know Troy Polamalu or whatever. But Tart's super, super important. Hufanga, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but there's definitely a drop off between Tart and him.
Here's the similarities between Hufanga and Tart, if I can correlate them. I think that they both play very well on instincts. I think that Tart's mind is the part that gets lost in the shuffle, right? Fred Warner got that interception against the Giants, but then when you heard him speak after the press conference, he said Tart called it out because he saw it live. He called it out and he ran the route and he undercut it. The other one was go back to 2019 Week 2 against Cincinnati Bengals, Ahkello Witherspoon is on the right side. There's a specific play on the Bengals side of the field, I believe in the third quarter, where they try to run a slant route with John Ross. Ahkello jumps it. But if you go back and you just watch Tart, he goes like this, and he's yelling at Witherspoon that he called it out. Witherspoon, if he brings that in, that's a pick six. That would be 2 pick sixes back to back because he had one week 1 and then week 2. I think that people really don't understand what Tart brings to this defense. And if you don't believe me, then believe the coaching staff. How is it that a guy who wasn't around for camp or any sort of preseason until that last game is automatically slotted right back in that spot? Why? They trust him, they know what he's doing, and they know that he's a smart player. You guys got to get up off his back, man.
And he's not just trustworthy and smart. He's a really good athlete. He was a top 50 pick. He moves really. I mean, he covers wide. He covers wide receivers in one-on-ones. He's bigger than Jimmy Ward, and he's still out there doing it. So I'm just saying.
He did that in 2017 as well. He had to cover tight ends. He was up at the line and all those things. And then when you heard Tart talk in his press conference after he signed, I hope that they blitz me 35 times. That shows what DeMeco Ryans is trying to do with him. So don't act like if you just put in Hufanga or Wilson, no disrespect to either of them, that it would be the same exact thing. We haven't seen Hufanga be that security blanket on the back end that doesn't give up big plays. So that would be the part that I'm very concerned about, even if they leave him in single high during preseason games.
Okay, one more player on the defense that we would consider irreplaceable. Go ahead.
Jimmy Ward.
We didn't talk about this beforehand, but that's my other guy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jimmy Ward.
So Jimmy Ward, we don't have to sing his praises anymore because now everybody all of a sudden loves Jimmy Ward after years of trashing this man, right? But here's the thing that I think is the most important about Jimmy Ward. K'Waun Williams is great, and he's obviously the slot corner at this point, right? And I thought that Diamador Lenore would profile as his replacement in that way. But here's this. What if Jimmy Ward in a pinch is asked in nickel downs to actually be the corner guy, the slot corner? It's possible. What other free safety do you have in the league that is able to do that where you feel comfortable? He's clamping Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, any of your tight ends. Jimmy Ward is irreplaceable based on where you can play him. He is the ultimate chess piece. And in an emergency, in a pinch, if you need him to be slot corner, he can. It's just that now everybody's starting to wake up to it. And it's only been 6 years of him being in the league for it to be now known.
Yeah. And again, he's always been really good, and he didn't get his props, especially from me. But what the thing was in 2019, they did have Tavarius Moore, and Moore isn't great, but there's a lot you can do with him. He played corner. I mean, he's very athletic, and he was part of their dime package. He's not here anymore. He's hurt, and I don't know when he's coming back. So I think going from him, who's super athletic, to late 5th round pick from USC or career special teamer Tavon Wilson is different. I don't know. So yeah, I think this is again the depth in the secondary. Big picture here. Yes, Jimmy Ward's great. I love singing his praises. We could do it all the time. Big picture, the Niners really spent a lot of money to have one backup, and now they have no depth in the secondary. It's very I feel like in 2019 they could have won a game without Sherman. Yes. They could have won a game. Mosley was a huge found money for them, and they won games with Witherspoon as well. Now it's I don't know, man.
As quickly as you wanted Ahkello Witherspoon gone, you start to realize that there's no fallback plan like him anymore, unfortunately. So we'll see. We're gonna see.
Okay, let's move on to the offense. I'll get it started.
Go for it.
Debo Samuel. I mean, if he were to get hurt and miss a game, who would be his replacement? Trent Sherfield? Nothing against Trent Sherfield, but I think all the enthusiasm is about him as a great number 3 receiver who plays sometimes and does some things. But as a starter, I mean, he had 5 catches last year. And then there's one more thing about Debo. It's a huge part of your run game, even when he's not getting the ball. So there's that. He makes the whole offense so much easier for everyone.
Right. And clearly, Kyle Shanahan wants to use him. They manufacture touches for him in any way possible, whether that's a throw to the sideline on a quick tunnel screen, or whether that's just those breeze bys where they just toss the ball up that technically count as catches. Yeah, he's vital to this offense and what they want to do. So yes, I agree with you. And here's the thing. when Debo Samuel went down, okay, Brandon Ayuk's there, but there's no Kendrick Bourne now to fall back on. Like, again, and that's another thing. Like, I get it, man. We all went into this offseason saying, hey, man, Kendrick Bourne wants to get paid. Let him get paid somewhere else. But I don't think everybody understands the safety and the comfort that he gave, especially on third down and in the red zone. Nothing against Trent Sherfield, who I don't know if this is going to come off as a hot take. I think offers a little bit more than Kendrick Bourne as in terms of what his skill set is, but he hasn't shown it. So I can't say that for a fact, right? Until you show it on the field, potential is potential. And that's the reason that there's a wide receiver piddling around on this roster is because of potential. Potential isn't exactly what translate into production, right? So
and preseason production doesn't necessarily translate into production.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Kendrick Bourne, while he could be limited skill-wise, still was able to perform at this level in the biggest games. So that's why it gets hairy when one of these guys gets injured. Now you're really, really, really playing with fire because behind the top two of Ayuk and Samuel, Sherfield, Sanu, Jennings, Hurd. Ouch. That's not none of those guys can win on the outside. None of those guys are able to do the things that Debo and Ayuk can do. Travis Benjamin can't do that.
Also, no one else can run the jet sweep in the end round like him. No. Like Ayuk's good at it, but he's not physical like that. And Jalen Hurd was supposed to be able to do it too, but he's lost, I think, some burst.
He was too slow on that jet sweep.
No question about it.
I was like, there it is.
And it's such a key part of their run game. He's so important. So important,
So if God forbid something happens to Debo and Ayuk, so now defenses won't have to worry about being beat on the outside because Sanu can't win on the outside, neither can Jennings. It remains to be seen if Sherfield can, and I wouldn't bet on it. And then Jalen Hurd can't. So, man, you would have to really resort to.
I mean, I'm sure Sherfield can win on the outside against certain corners, but let's see what happens when he's going against the best
Jalen Ramsey
all game. Yeah, I mean.
What if that's a Rams game where it's Jalen Ramsey that's going to be on the other side? Now you can't even throw to him, and now you're just like that's so. It is vital for Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk to be upright all year.
Yeah. Okay. Who you got?
Man, it's George Kittle. And then, again, this is easy, right? Like this is it's obvious, right? So I think that obviously what they want to do with him, they're going to scheme him open, but I think that he doesn't get enough credit for his route running, but I think it's the run blocking as well too. If George Kittle ever went down, the idea of having somebody who is out there as a possible pass catcher who actually profiles as another lineman is invaluable. Look, no disrespect to Ross Dwelly, who actually absolutely balled out this preseason and in camp. Absolutely. And he has strong hands. The guy can't block like George Kittle, and not many can. And I would not rely on Charlie Warner to be that guy. Charlie Warner's too slow to do that. He can block. He's getting better, but if George Kittle went down, that drop-off would be drastic, and it changes everything that they kind of want to do.
That's why they signed Michael Pruitt originally. I mean, he can block.
And that's what they thought. And then he had the injury, and he was behind the eight ball, and then, boom, he ends back up on Tennessee's practice squad. So, look, this is an obvious one. When you have elite players, it doesn't matter what position. If they go down, there's not an elite player behind them, and there's usually not a very, really good player behind them. It's usually just a backup. And that's what I'm saying with George Kittle, what they want to do, what he brings to the team. And here's something that is not tangible, something that I'm kind of going to bring up. His energy when he's on the field, like the team responds to that. He's the leader of the offense. Him, not the quarterback, not anybody else. It's George Kittle. When he's on the field, the team moves different. They play different. So this one seems kind of obvious. I feel like I didn't even really give any analysis here with this. But, yeah, George Kittle for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only thing is in 2019, they did win without him. And Ross Dwelly is a hell of a backup tight end. But, yeah, he's the best tight end in the league. So it's a huge drop-off. Mm-hmm. Jody says, Ayuk, who I like, dropped a few too many passes in preseason. Not like him. Anything we should be concerned about? Do we miss deep threat like Emmanuel? Well, it's fair to point out that Ayuk is equally as important to the offense as Debo. We were just talking about, and he has a hamstring injury right now. And he has a history of injuries, and really, he's been the one who's been more injured this year than Debo so far. So, definitely something to monitor with Ayuk for sure.
The drop passes, I think that the first one to Trey Lance, with the Chiefs, in the Chiefs game, that one was concerning. The one with Jimmy, I still have a tough time blaming. Yes, I still have a tough time blaming Brandon Ayuk for that one. I'm sorry, guys. Listen, the throw was high. Cool. Yeah. He got his hands on it, but not everything that you get your hands on is a catch. Let me explain. when you're fully extended, right, and you have to make that play, don't make it seem like that's something that's simple. Even if it's an NFL wide receiver and somebody as we hold in high regard as Brandon Ayuk. Also, not to pile on, but Jimmy Garoppolo had a wide open window to throw that ball in a great pocket, and he still sailed it.
I feel like he jumped as high as he could and gave full extension and tipped off his fingertips. Well, what do you? It's like, you're saying his arms aren't long enough? Like
the man's catch radius is huge, and you still found a way to put it in a place where he couldn't get it.
I don't know. I thought he did all. I mean, if he alligator armed it, or if he didn't, then you could say for sure that's weak. But I thought he did everything he could.
He laid out for it.
I thought he did. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Alex Mack. I don't even know if he's good anymore. But the thing is, if they don't have Alex Mack, they have the same offensive line as last year, minus. I mean, I don't even know who their center is. Jake Brendel. So they need Alex Mack to be good, and they need him to play 17 games because he is the main difference. It was supposed to be him and Banks. It's him.
So here's the thing: why I'm holding off on my evaluation on this offensive line when it comes to Daniel Brunskill and everybody else. Alex Mack and them need to have cohesion and play a bunch because I think that matters so much, and I think that people are disregarding his pass protection and him calling out all of the blitz calls, right? So I'll point to something that I saw in camp, and this is stuck and burned in my mind. The first time that Alex Mack and the ones took the field together, fully together, right? He literally on one play with Jimmy Garoppolo called out he puts his arm out and he calls out the protection. Not only did they stop it, it gave Jimmy enough time to complete a pass. And I'm just like, listen, that doesn't look like anything, but the 49ers have not had that since Weston Richburg went down.
True.
No disrespect to anybody else that was after him, but man, I have a tough time grading the entire offensive line. Like, look, Trent Williams is good. Trent Williams is good. We're not worried about that. Yeah. But in terms of how we evaluate this entire line, I need to see Alex Mack and this entire line with extended reps, not one series on a preseason game because that's hard to see, and not Alex Mack with a backup next to him or someone else. I need to see all of them together. Alex Mack is so intriguing because if he can be what I think he can be, then he improves Brunskill, McGlinchey, and Tomlinson all in the same time if he's able to bring those smarts to the team that I think that he can.
Absolutely. It also seemed like in 2019 when they had Weston Richburg, there was a lot more that they could do in the run game. That they could use him in a lot of ways, and they could just coordinate a much more hectic, crisscrossing blocking scheme. And then when he was out last year, it seemed pretty straight ahead, straightforward with less moving parts. So maybe with Alex Mack. What?
That's what they liked about Richburg was that he can pull out. Like he can, you get him. He's in the shotgun, but he runs outside, and he's the one leading the charge, and he's athletic enough to do that. So that's important. That's why the center is so important to this offense. That's why Kyle wanted to bring in somebody who he trusts, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this happens. It's going to be hard to evaluate them in this Detroit game because you're not really too worried about what Detroit has up front. Right, like it's not going to be exotic. It's not going to be. They don't have top.
Sucks.
Right.
Sorry.
They don't have top end guys. They don't have guys that you're worried about. Like they don't have an Aaron Donald where they can move him around, anything like that. So we're going to see, I think, in week 3 where it's at, right? Because Philly does have some. Actually, you know what? We'll see in Philly. Philly's roster isn't that great, but they do have some guys up front that'll actually cause some problems. So I'm interested to see how Alex Mack looks with this entire offense, offensive line in one shot.
Yeah. Dwelly is a great number 2 tight end. Would start for many teams. Yeah. Still should have kept Matthews, though. Greetings from Germany. Much love, Grant. Trey must start. He's on the practice squad, and I think he could be one of the people they bring up because I do think you want 4 tight ends on game day just in case one guy gets hurt.
One more thing about the practice squad, and this is my conspiracy theory real quick. Is Jalen Hurd going to be healthy scratch, and they're going to be able to bring up Travis Benjamin from the practice squad to just field punts that day?
Maybe. Perhaps. I mean, they don't have a punt returner on the roster, so that'd be good. Unless they just want to just fair catch every single time and avoid the
They could bring up Craycraft for that.
They could. He's good at that. Sorry, River. Voice ad agency says, do we need to put some blame on the trainer? It seems like all our players who get injured always have a setback or get re-injured.
Hey. The trainers have done an amazing job. The trainers have done an amazing job this year. We're good. We're good over here. Like, we're not going to slander them this year. Everybody's pretty much ready to go.
No, the setback thing is interesting. I was thinking about it today. Maybe it's not really setbacks. They just didn't tell the truth about the timeline to begin with. And they're like, oh, he's going to be back next week. Oh, he had a setback.
More conspiracy theories. That Trey injury is a lot worse than they're saying.
That's what I'm wondering too, yo. That's why I'm starting to wonder about like they should be able to win weeks 1 and 2 no matter what. But if they don't have Trey for weeks 3, 4, 5, 7, I don't know, man. Those are really tough games. And I don't know about this. Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna see Trey at all in week 1. At all. Whether
I think they can win without him week 1. I think they can win without him week 1.
They can.
But I don't know about week 3.
Whether they had plans to do that or not, like with the 2 quarterback thing, is a whole different thing. But this is Jimmy's show, week 1. Jimmy's show, week 1. Done and done. Man,
this guy got hurt in the preseason. What? I tried to tell Kyle, and he was like, "This is what we want to do." I was like, "Hey, knock yourself out, man, please." All right. Who is the most, in my opinion? We haven't said him yet. You mentioned him in passing. The most irreplaceable player on the offense.
Trent Williams.
It's not even close.
No.
It's not even close.
There's not even Justin School right now to pull in for him at this point, which is that's a severe drop off. Yeah. Now you're talking about Jalen Moore probably having to be that guy who actually, you know what, in the Chargers game he played every single snap. Cool, he actually was coming along, but the best left tackle in the league cannot be replaced. It just can't happen, and it won't happen. And oh man, I shudder to think what. Again, I just talked about cohesion with Alex Mack. None of that cohesion applies to Trent Williams. Does not matter at all, because if he's on his one-on-one, you're not beating Trent Williams. It's just not going to happen. Doesn't matter whether the other guys are in sync. Trent Williams is going to win his battle. If he goes down, good gosh, man, I fear for both quarterbacks because their blind side is not going to be protected. And
it's really going to hurt the run game. I mean, he's so important. If he were to miss time, I would say I would have to question, any team that they're playing against. If that team has one good edge rusher, I'm thinking, I don't know. This is a dicey game. He's that important. I think what's interesting about this whole season is that they're in this position where pretty much they are at the mercy of Jason Varette and Trent Williams. 2 guys, more than anything. And those are great players, yo. I'm not saying they're not. And they could both play 17 games. But that's what it comes down to, those 2 guys.
And just point to the Green Bay game when all those guys were on COVID. Justin School got worked by Zadarius Smith, and it was just bad all around. So yes, I mean, again, you're not going to replace the best left tackle in football with anyone. Like, it's just not going to happen. But in terms of what this team wants to do, how valuable he is, it's just if God forbid anything happens to this man for any sort of extended period of time. I mean, even a game against Arizona where they could line up, J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, and move them over and move them all around. Oh man, things can get hairy. I don't care who the quarterback is.
Here is that Trent Williams and Jason Varette typically miss a couple games a year. So that's something to think about. When will one of those games coming? Can the Niners win without him? I mean, I think the Niners could probably beat Detroit without Trent and Jason Varette, but I don't know if they could beat the Rams. I don't know if they could beat Seattle.
You can't beat the Packers without them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Seattle. Yeah.
That's what's interesting is we didn't mention Nick Bosa. We didn't mention D Ford. I actually think the Niners they got Ebicom. They got Jordan Willis coming back. Arden Key. I mean, I wouldn't really say Nick Bosa. I think they could use him, but if he missed a month, they could be fine without him, theoretically.
I don't know. I mean, I think Bosa is very valuable. So I'll push back on that one. I'll push back on that one. I'm not saying he's not. No, yeah. I push back on that one because I think that everything that they want to do is based on the idea of him being able to just win those reps and go every single time. So I think that he's super valuable in that way. I'm not going to downplay Nick Bosa at all. What I will say is this.
They still would hold on. They still would have D Ford, Eric Armstead, and Waves on that D line. It would be a bad pass rush.
Right. So that's my point, right? In 2019, you're not going to reach the heights of Buckner, Ford, Bosa, and Armstead. But the depth on this defensive line is better than it is in 2019. So they're able to withstand those losses better than it was. Yes. Yeah. Absolute depth.
It's legit.
And there's gonna be guys that when other guys come back, when Mo Hurst comes back, when Jordan Willis comes back, a good football player is gonna have to be taken off of this roster. And that's just how good they are at it. And you can see how, they built this roster inside out. Offensive line, defensive line, you want to build it that way. They kept 11 defensive linemen, 11.
And they probably could have kept 12. Darren Daniels is better than some of the guys on the active roster. The Niners have depth at 4 positions. D-line, running back, tight end.
Yep.
Quarterback. But they're thin as hell at corner, safety, offensive line. I mean, honestly, you could add Laken Tomlinson to this list. You could add Mike McGlinchey to this list. Like, they can't afford to lose Mike McGlinchey. They can't afford to lose Lake and Tomlinson. The drop off from Tomlinson to Banks is not good.
Or the drop off from Tomlinson to Compton.
So I got to say, Jason, I'm a little concerned about this team. I mean, we've been focused so much this offseason on Trey or Jimmy or Trey. Hey, the fate of this team may come down to Trent and Jason. You know what I'm saying? Maybe those are the names that we need to be focused on.
I mean, of course, anything can happen in the season, obviously. But these were concerns that we voiced over the off season. So it's true. But again, any team would be devastated by losing their left tackle or their number one corner. But at the same time, what these guys do is so valuable and it's different. So
Tobin says no way Trey will be healthy 1 week after a broken bone, right? The right index finger of a right-handed quarterback is fairly important last time I checked. All I'm saying is if their plan was to use him like they use him with the Raiders where you just come on the field and hand off, he could do that.
See, but all right, that's where I'll push back on this too. That's when it starts to become the Taysom Hill thing where 99% of the time he's on the field, it's a run. I don't care how deceptive.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, I don't care how deceptive that is. I don't want the defense knowing, okay, Trey's on the field, his finger's broken. Let's gas up on the run. I don't like that idea at all.
If you can also throw the shovel pass.
Yeah, but if Trey's not ready to go with the finger, ready to throw the ball or at least be that threat, don't do it. Don't do it at this point. We know that we can beat Detroit and Philly with Jimmy Garoppolo and this run game. No questions asked. I don't care what the biggest Jimmy Garoppolo hater in the world can admit that part. So give him his time and don't force this issue, especially when you don't need to at this point.
I'm not admitting anything unless I'm under oath. What you talking about? Willis says fractured tip of my middle finger, a month to stop hurting and 2 months to get the feeling back. Just saying, dude, if that's what happened, dude, if I'm telling you,
they're notorious with
Trey to
win
these games.
There's notorious with getting injuries wrong and downplaying injuries. That's another thing as well too. So we'll see. I am not betting on seeing Trey Lance in these games. If you guys think that 2 quarterback system that you saw with the Raiders is what you're going to see in Detroit, I think you're going to be pleasantly disappointed or surprised, one way or the other.
If Trey Lance doesn't play before the bye week, if he's out until the bye week, 2-4, 2-0, and then no. They play 5 games for the bye week, right?
2-2, I believe. 2-2, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It'll be Green Bay and then Seattle back to back or something like that. Oh, yeah, man. Thanks. We'll see.
Okay. Are there any more? Yeah, one more. Tobin again. Until we're certain about Trey, Jimmy G is the most indispensable. Sudfeld will make Mullins look like Joe Montana. Yeah, that's fair.
Hey,
man, this season.
Look, but if you get down to quarterback, if you get down to quarterback 3, any team wouldn't be fine with that. Again, Nate Sudfeld is a guy on the practice squad just in case there's a close contact, COVID risk, and they can call him up and at least, I don't know. That's it. I'm done with nice things to say about Sudfeld. Okay.
They traded up to number 3 just to make sure they were good at quarterback. Oh, Brooks breaks his finger in the preseason in the pocket after I told you, Kyle, get him out of the pocket. Can't make these things up. Man, that's rough. I'm so sorry. That sucks to be a football coach. Like, you have all these plans, and then dude breaks his finger on a helmet. Well, yep, that's football. Sorry.
It is football.
We tried. Do you know who missed the block that led to the – I'm just curious. Like, who was closest to the guy who –
Can't remember. Yeah,
because it's your fault.
Yeah, all 22 is scarcer than I don't know what's the than affordable gas prices in California. Like,
no, I want to say something. I don't want to get too negative here, but if Trey Lance misses the first 5 weeks or something like that, and the Niners lose some games because Jimmy isn't good enough, then you really have to question Kyle's judgment about playing him so much with the second string. I mean, we all said it. We're like, whoa, if you play him with the second string offensive line, it could get bad in the preseason. It did. And I think in retrospect, dude, you took him number 3, playing with the freaking starters. I know you felt he wasn't ready or whatever, playing with the freaking starters, because look what happened. So we're not there yet. I like to get ahead of myself.
I just don't think that we're going to see him in week 1. That's the best I could put it. I just don't think we're going to see him much in week 1.
A lot of people giving me money seem to feel very strongly that it's going to be long. So I'm with the people who give me money. Johnny says Kyle would make a horrible used car salesman.
This car's all right.
By no means is it perfect.
I mean, no car's perfect though. I mean, if you're gonna go by that,
All right. Well, we went through the roster. That's our show for the day. It's a quick one, but it was a good one nonetheless. Thank you for your time, Jason. I always appreciate it.
No, thank you, Grant. I'm glad that you were able to accommodate me because I had some stuff going on or whatever. But you know the vibes.
Good. No, I mean this was perfect for me anyway. Have a good one, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow. Peace.